Good morning, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. Yet another early morning, bleary-eyed, unbrushed hair, pre-caffeinated video. But I'm out here trying to get some of those early morning chores done, like slug picking, like planting a few of the perennials that I purchased at Joy Creek Nursery that I haven't gotten in the ground yet. And I thought, there's a lot of really interesting things going on here in my garden in Zone 8B in Portland, Oregon right now. And why don't I just show you some of the things that are interesting to me and maybe interesting to you, some of the things I'm enjoying seeing, some of the progress of the garden. So let me just walk you around and show you a few different things and hope that maybe it gives you a little inspiration or some encouragement for what you can expect in your garden this time of year, and also what you might think about adding. So hang tight. I'm gonna flip the camera around and we'll go get a little tour.
First off, my tomatoes are looking enormous and I need to get them in the ground. However, it's still too early. 2 more weeks. So I took my 4-inch pot starts. If you watch my video, I don't start tomatoes from seed anymore. I buy them at the plant nursery. So I buy them as 4-inch pots and then I put them into a 1-gallon pot as quickly as possible so they have a chance to really get a good, strong root system going, and they will have the most success in my garden. So they're all looking strong and healthy. You can see a couple of times I forgot to bring them in overnight because life gets crazy and busy. And this is what your tomatoes can look like if they have cold damage. The leaves can get yellow and kind of brown on the ends. That's a sign it's too cold for them to be outdoors overnight. So definitely keep bringing them in or keep covering them with plastic at night. A couple more weeks, these girls will be in the ground. Now this is my front yard garden bed. The things I have been transplanting out here in late winter and early spring are all really beginning to get going. So let's go have a look at how things are progressing in this part of the garden. I talk a lot about how I really love to meld kind of a overgrown cottage garden look with permaculture. I like pretty flowers. I like food for my pollinators. So I don't want to get entrenched in a mode of thinking that I can only grow food and medicinal and fiber plants. I want it all. So I have lots and lots of roses and lots of perennial flowering plants, both for my own enjoyment and because my pollinators love them. And also many of them happen to be edible or medicinal or confuse pests and things like that. But let's be real, sometimes I grow them because they're real pretty. Mixed in are also beautiful things that are quote unquote permaculture plants, like this crandall currant, a native here in the Pacific Northwest. It's also called a clove currant. You can see the flowers look different than the European currant, and the leaves look a little bit more like a gooseberry. It smells amazing, which is why it is up by the front door. Clovey, lovely scent. The Egyptian walking onions I have planted around. I went from having 1 patch to deciding I'm going to use a ton of patches because my kids eat a lot of green onions. So my Egyptian walking onions are looking good. I saved the largest and thickest plants to replant, and the smaller ones I eat so that over time I can kind of gradually encourage a larger bulb and a larger green onion. You can see I'm still adding leaf mold, more Egyptian walking onions, and my late apples are still in flower, but they are beginning to set fruit. I thought I would show you a couple of exciting things on my pawpaw trees. I've been hand pollinating them every morning, takes about 5 minutes. And if you look here, and you look here, that's pawpaw fruit. Little tiny pawpaw fruit. And it's interesting if you look on them, this is little bits of old pollen left on it, but if you look on them, you can see that each one has between 2 and 5 of these little tiny elongated bits, which are the baby fruit. So hoping, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. I always have a tendency to get very excited about teeny tiny baby fruit. And last year, this Nikita's Gift persimmon decided to abort probably 60 young green persimmons on her, and I was devastated. So don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. But there is a lot of fruit thing here. My service berries. Little baby fruit. Now, service berries here can be really prone to cedar apple rust. I don't want to plant them near my quinces because they both share a sensitivity to that fungal disease. But if I keep it in an area with good ventilation and I want to prune my service berries, much like my quince, very open, lots of room for air circulation, and I don't want to overhead water, all of that helps deter rust. You can see I've been working on getting geraniums in the ground. I might harp on how much I love geraniums. It's because they're beautiful, they're low maintenance, and they really spread, and they are a great source of bee food. And cut them to the ground when they get too leggy, they rebloom. One of my young tree peonies starting to bloom. Also, can we just check out the fruit set on my Romeo bush cherry? We'll see how the fruit does. Bush cherries here can be really prone to brown rot, not as much as tree cherries, but they do get it, and that can cause dieback and fruit loss. But I got a big crop off of this last year. Underneath you can see my comfrey really coming up. Great chop and drop plant. I don't chop and drop until after the first round of blooming is done, and that's when I make my comfrey tea and when I chop a bunch of this back and throw it on the ground. That way it encourages it to regrow and rebloom. Artichoke coming up. I used to grow a ton of artichokes. They take up a lot of room and you only get a couple of artichokes on them, so I have decided to keep it to one plant. That's what works for us. Even though I could eat artichokes every day, I'm content with getting 5 or 6 a year out of my garden because I just can't justify the use of space. Even though the leaves make great mulch, even though it's really great to grow your own artichokes, for me, I think it's better to use that space for something else. But if you have all the space in the world, go for it. Grow a ton of artichokes because they're really easy to grow, obviously lovely plant, and nothing tastes as good as a homegrown artichoke. Here in the front yard, I let the borage freely self-sow wherever it wants. You can see it makes wonderful bee food. Thank you for watching today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please check out my Patreon in the description. I'll be back tomorrow to show you my woodland garden and backyard garden beds, including my hardy kiwis, which have been much requested. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.